Ecclesiastes, the story of faith, one book at a time. We spend much of our lives trying to make temporary things permanent. We build careers, homes, families, reputations, and legacies. We learn, plan, work, and prepare for a future we cannot see. Much of that grows from the purpose God gave humanity in the beginning. We were created in His image and placed within His world to cultivate, steward, and rule under His authority. But somewhere along the way, we begin asking the things we build to give us more than they can. We want work to guarantee significance, wisdom to protect us, possessions to provide security, and the next generation to preserve what we have done. Beneath it all is a desire we rarely say aloud. We want something in this life to survive our death and prove that our labor mattered. Ecclesiastes speaks directly into that longing. It does not tell us that work, wisdom, pleasure, relationships, or possessions are worthless. It tells us that they cannot bear the weight of eternity. They are real gifts, but they are fleeting. We can receive them, enjoy them, and use them faithfully, but we cannot make them permanent or force them to give us lasting control. That is why Ecclesiastes can feel unsettling. The wise still die. The righteous sometimes suffer. The wicked sometimes prosper. What we build may pass to someone who does not value it, and even the memory of a remarkable life eventually fades. Yet Ecclesiastes is not a book of hopelessness. It teaches us how to live faithfully when we finally admit that we are not sovereign. We have been given a portion to steward and enjoy, but not a lasting gain we can secure. We have real dominion, but not ultimate control. The earth is our God-given home and sphere of responsibility, but creation cannot give our existence its ultimate purpose. God made the earth for His image bearers to inhabit, but He made His image bearers for Himself. Ecclesiastes matters because it teaches us to stop grasping at God's gifts as though they were God's. It calls us to receive them gratefully, hold them humbly, fear our Creator, keep His commandments, and trust Him with the meaning and outcome of our lives. To understand why this book speaks so clearly to us, we first need to know what we are reading. Ecclesiastes belongs to the wisdom literature of the Old Testament. Like Proverbs and Job, it trains us to live within God's world through its own distinct voice and purpose. The Hebrew name of the central speaker is Koheleth. The ESV translates the title as the preacher. The word is associated with gathering or addressing an assembly, although its precise sense is debated. Most of the book gives his reflections in the first person, framed by another voice at the beginning and end. Ecclesiastes opens by identifying the preacher as the son of David, king in Jerusalem, and later says that he was king over Israel and Jerusalem. His extraordinary wisdom, wealth, servants, building projects, gardens, pleasures, and royal experiments unmistakably evoke Solomon. For that reason, the book has traditionally been attributed to Solomon. Still, the book never names Solomon directly. Some understand Solomon to be the author. Others believe a later writer adopted a Solomonic royal voice. The exact authorship and date remain debated, but the argument does not depend upon settling them. We are asked to hear someone who possessed nearly everything people imagine would make life secure and satisfying. Ecclesiastes combines personal reflection, observation, poetry, proverbial sayings, instruction, and a concluding evaluation. Its argument is not a simple straight line. The preacher returns to work, wisdom, pleasure, wealth, injustice, worship, time, aging, and death, pressing the same question into every area of life. 4 recurring ideas help us follow him. The first is vanity. The Hebrew word hebel can refer to breath, mist, or vapor. Meaningless sometimes captures part of the preacher's frustration, but is too narrow for every use. Vapor is real but brief, visible but impossible to hold. Life under the sun is fleeting, elusive, and impossible to secure. The second expression is under the sun. It describes life as we observe it within this present world, time, mortality, and death. It does not automatically mean life without God. God is present throughout the book as creator, giver, sovereign, and judge. We live within the story, but we cannot see it from beginning to end. The third idea is gain. The preacher asks what permanent surplus remains from our labor, something death cannot take and time cannot erase. The fourth is portion. We cannot secure permanent gain, but we can receive the work, provision, relationships, opportunities, and days God entrusts to us for a time. The movement from grasping for gain to receiving our portion is one of the clearest ways to understand the book. Now, where does Ecclesiastes fit within the larger story of faith? Ecclesiastes takes us back to the tension introduced in Genesis. God created the world good. He made human beings in his image to cultivate the earth, exercise delegated authority under him, reflect his character, and live in relationship with him. Work, wisdom, creativity, relationships, and enjoyment belong to that good purpose. But humanity rebelled. The ground was cursed, work became painful toil, and death entered human experience. We still bear God's image and still build, create, love, and learn, but we do so in a world marked by frustration, injustice, decay, and death. Ecclesiastes lives inside that tension. Human beings possess genuine authority, but we cannot command time, guarantee the harvest, control every outcome, carry wealth beyond the grave, or determine what future generations will do with our legacy. We sense that life belongs to a larger whole, but we cannot discover everything God is doing from beginning to end. This is where Ecclesiastes becomes an important companion to Proverbs. Proverbs teaches the moral patterns God has woven into his world. Wisdom generally leads toward life, stability, diligence, integrity, and peace. Folly generally produces destruction. Those patterns are true, and Ecclesiastes never tells us to abandon wisdom. But Ecclesiastes prevents us from turning the patterns of Proverbs into mechanical guarantees. The wisest person cannot control every circumstance. The diligent do not always become wealthy. The righteous do not always receive immediate justice. Wisdom is better than folly, but wisdom is not sovereignty. Job exposed simplistic retribution theology. Suffering does not always prove hidden sin. Ecclesiastes widens that lesson across ordinary life. The world under the sun does not always distribute outcomes according to what people deserve. Together, these wisdom books train us in humility. Proverbs teaches us to choose wisdom. Job teaches us not to use wisdom as a weapon against people whose suffering we do not understand. Ecclesiastes teaches us not to use wisdom as a formula for controlling God's providence. The book also protects us from despising creation. Food, work, companionship, beauty, and provision are gifts from God. But the earth still belongs to the Lord. We are caretakers, not independent owners, and image bearers, not rival gods. We can enjoy creation without asking it to provide what only the Creator can give. With that foundation in place, let us walk through the movement of the book. Ecclesiastes begins with a declaration and a question. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 2 and 3 says, "Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun?" The opening poem describes generations coming and going while the earth continues. The sun rises and sets, the wind circles, and streams run toward a sea that is never filled. We enter a world already in motion, labor briefly within it, and leave it to another generation. Even the memory of those who came before us disappears. From Ecclesiastes 1:12 through chapter 2, the preacher conducts what we might call the royal experiment. If anyone under the sun should be able to discover lasting satisfaction through human achievement, it is this king. He gives himself to wisdom and knowledge, tastes madness and folly, laughter and pleasure. He builds houses, plants vineyards and gardens, gathers servants and herds, accumulates silver and gold, surrounds himself with entertainment, and becomes greater than everyone before him in Jerusalem. He admits that his heart found pleasure in his toil. The royal experiment succeeds at producing experiences. It fails at producing lasting gain. When the preacher examines everything his hands have done, he sees that he cannot keep it. Wisdom is better than folly, as light is better than darkness, but the wise and foolish share the same earthly destination. Both die and are eventually forgotten. Work cannot solve that problem. The preacher may labor with wisdom and skill, only to leave everything to someone who may handle it foolishly. His success gives him no power over the next steward. This realization drives him toward despair, but the section ends with an important turn. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 24 and 25 says, "There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God, for apart from him who can eat or who can have enjoyment." The answer is not to accumulate more. It is to recognize the hand of the giver. The preacher cannot transform his work into a permanent possession, but he can receive it as his present portion from God. Ecclesiastes 3 opens with the book's best-known poem. There is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. The poem can comfort us, but within Ecclesiastes it also emphasizes our lack of control. We do not create time. We live within seasons appointed beyond us and cannot make every moment become the one we prefer. Then the preacher describes one of the deepest tensions in the book. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end." We sense that each moment belongs to something larger and long to understand the whole. Yet we cannot stand outside history and survey God's complete work. Eternity is in our hearts, but sovereignty is not in our hands. The preacher then sharpens the contrast. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 14 says, "I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken from it. God has done it so that people fear before him." What God does endures forever. We cannot give that permanence to our own achievements, add to what God does, or take anything from it. The contrast is meant to produce reverence. His work is permanent. Ours is a portion entrusted to us within it. The chapters that follow examine life inside those limits. The preacher sees injustice, oppression, envy, idleness, the strength of companionship, and the misery of isolation. He sees a poor but wise youth replace a foolish king, only for the next generation to forget the new ruler too. He warns us to approach God carefully, listening rather than speaking rashly. God is in heaven, and we are on earth. Religious words do not give us leverage over him, and worship must not become another attempt to control outcomes. He also observes the limits of wealth. Riches can be lost, and a person may possess abundance without receiving the ability to enjoy it. Having much is tragic when none of it can be received as a gift. By the end of chapter 6, the questions have become sharper. Who knows what is good for us during the few days of our vain life? Who can tell us what will come after us under the sun? From chapters 7 through 11, Ecclesiastes explores how wisdom should function in a world we cannot predict. The preacher often sounds like Proverbs. A good name is better than expensive ointment. The house of mourning teaches what the house of feasting cannot. Wise rebuke is better than the song of fools, and patience is better than pride. Yet wisdom has limits. We cannot straighten everything that remains crooked, or assume that every hardship proves foolishness and every success proves righteousness. This is the setting for the difficult warning not to be overly righteous or overly wise. At minimum, the warning cannot be permission to sin, because the book ultimately commands us to keep God's commandments. Within Ecclesiastes' larger argument, it most naturally warns against a presumptuous righteousness or wisdom that expects obedience to make life controllable or place God under obligation. The preacher continues to see apparent injustice. The righteous sometimes receive what the wicked deserve, judgment is delayed, and people become bolder in evil. Ecclesiastes does not resolve every injustice within present history, but its final verdict places every deed before God's judgment. Chapter 9 brings death to the center again. The righteous and the wicked, the wise and the foolish, all face the grave. As long as we live, we still possess opportunity, but earthly life will not continue indefinitely. The preacher then challenges the belief that ability always determines outcome. Ecclesiastes chapter 9 verse 11 says, "Again I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all." This is an observation from within human experience, not a denial of God's sovereignty. Skill, strength, wisdom, and preparation matter, but none gives us mastery over everything that can happen. Ecclesiastes does not use uncertainty to justify passivity. Cast bread upon the waters. Divide portions wisely, because disaster may come. Sow in the morning and keep working in the evening, because we do not know which effort will prosper. Faithfulness does not require certainty about the outcome. We can act wisely, work diligently, and leave the result with God. The final movement begins in Ecclesiastes 11 verse 7. Light is sweet and life is good. We should rejoice in the days God gives us while remembering that he will bring us into judgment. Then Ecclesiastes 12 tells us to remember our Creator before weakness arrives. In one of Scripture's most vivid poems, aging is pictured through dimming lights, trembling keepers of a house, stooping strong men, silent grinders, darkened windows, fading desire, and the approach of our eternal home. The body returns to dust, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. The command to remember our Creator is urgent because a day will come when we must release everything else. The preacher's opening declaration returns. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. But now we have traveled through the argument. Life is not nothing. It is good, painful, beautiful, unjust, enjoyable, frustrating, and brief. It is a gift we can receive, but not a possession we can keep. Ecclesiastes ends with the narrator describing the preacher as wise and affirming his words as truthful. His sayings are like goads that move us and firmly fixed nails that steady us, given by one shepherd. The conclusion is not a last-minute religious correction attached to an otherwise faithless book. It gathers themes that have appeared throughout the preacher's search. God is creator. God appoints times. God gives the ability to enjoy. God must be feared. God will judge. The final answer is not that we will gain control if we discover the right technique. The final answer is that God remains God when we cannot make life yield the permanent gain we seek. Now that we have followed the preacher's search, 5 major themes come into focus. One major theme is that life is vapor, but vapor is not the same as nothing. Ecclesiastes does not ask us to call a meal, a friendship, meaningful work, or a beautiful morning worthless. Their brevity does not erase their goodness. It teaches us to receive them without demanding that they last forever. Another theme is the difference between dominion and sovereignty. Human beings still build, plant, study, govern, and create. Yet we cannot control time, guarantee results, see God's entire work, or defeat death. Those entrusted with genuine responsibility remain beneath the rule of God. Wisdom and work carry the same tension. Wisdom is better than folly, and faithful labor belongs to our created purpose. But neither can explain every mystery, eliminate every injustice, preserve our name, or exempt us from death. We are called to live wisely and work faithfully without turning either into a claim upon the future. Ecclesiastes also returns repeatedly to enjoyment. Work, companionship, marriage, provision, and ordinary days can be received as gifts. This is not hedonism, which treats pleasure as the highest good without reference to the giver. It is accountable joy received from God's hand. A person may possess abundance without receiving the ability to enjoy it, because enjoyment is itself a gift. Injustice remains in view. Power can be abused, the oppressed may have no visible comforter, and evil may go unpunished for a time. Ecclesiastes does not tell us when every wrong will be addressed, but it assures us that present appearances are not the final verdict. God will bring every deed into judgment. Finally, the book teaches us to live with mystery. God placed eternity in our hearts, but not the whole map in our hands. We are creatures, and God is creator. The proper response is not nihilism, hedonism, or paralysis. It is reverence, gratitude, obedience, wise labor, accountable joy, and trust. All of that brings us to one verse that gives the book its final orientation. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13 says, "The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." This is the key verse because it gives the final orientation for everything the preacher has observed. We cannot secure lasting gain through wisdom, pleasure, wealth, accomplishment, or legacy. We cannot control time, understand every work of God, or escape death. But we are not left without direction. We can fear God and keep his commandments. To fear God is not merely to be frightened of him. It is to stand before him with reverence, humility, trust, allegiance, and an awareness that he is creator and we are his creatures. Keeping his commandments is not a technique for controlling outcomes. It is the faithful response of people who belong to him. The next verse completes the thought. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. Many accounts remain unsettled under the sun. God's judgment means they will not remain unsettled forever. Our inability to see the final outcome does not mean there is no final outcome. The whole of life is lived before God. From there, how does Ecclesiastes point us toward King Jesus? Ecclesiastes does not contain a direct messianic prophecy, and we should not force one into the book. It points toward Jesus by exposing problems that no merely human king, no amount of wisdom, and no earthly achievement can solve. The preacher speaks through a Solomonic royal world of extraordinary wisdom, wealth, authority, and pleasure. Yet even this son of David in Jerusalem cannot make wisdom defeat death, work preserve itself, or justice arrive in every case. Jesus says that one greater than Solomon has come. He is not merely another wise teacher offering improved advice. He is the wisdom of God, the perfect image of the invisible God, the faithful son of David, and the true king. He also entered life under the sun. He experienced work, hunger, weariness, grief, injustice, rejection, and death. Unlike every other image bearer, he lived in perfect faithfulness to the Father, yet he willingly entered the grave. Death is the boundary Ecclesiastes cannot remove. It overtakes the wise and foolish, separates us from our labor, and takes possessions from our hands. The resurrection of Jesus changes that horizon. Jesus entered death and emerged victorious. He rose bodily, reigns as king, and guarantees resurrection life for those who belong to him. God does not discard humanity or abandon creation. In Jesus, he restores his image bearers and moves creation toward freedom from corruption. Jesus is also the appointed judge through whom God will judge the world. The one who sees what remains hidden will settle what remains unresolved. This gives Paul's words at the end of his great resurrection chapter particular power. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58 says, "Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain." We cannot make our labor permanent through wisdom, strength, or legacy. But because Jesus conquered death, labor done in the Lord participates in a purpose death cannot erase. Our hope is not that everything we build will remain exactly as we leave it. Our hope is that the risen King holds us, receives our faithfulness, raises the dead, judges rightly, and brings God's purpose for humanity and creation to completion. So how should we read a book this searching without flattening its tensions? We should read Ecclesiastes slowly enough to let its tensions remain visible. We should not translate every use of vanity as absolute meaninglessness. Hebel can communicate transience, frustration, absurdity, elusiveness, or brevity depending on the setting. The preacher is showing us how difficult it is to grasp and keep life under the sun. We should not assume that under the sun always means life without God. The preacher observes life from within earthly limits, but God is woven throughout the book as creator, giver, sovereign, and judge. We should not treat the calls to enjoy life as hedonism. Grasping says, "This gift must complete me." Receiving says, "This gift came from God, and I will not demand that it become eternal." We should also be careful with observations about death. The preacher describes what can be seen under the sun. The dead no longer participate in earthly work or rewards. This is not the Bible's complete teaching about what follows death. Ecclesiastes says that the spirit returns to God, and every person faces his judgment. The larger story reveals resurrection more fully. Difficult sayings should be read within the completed book. "Be not overly righteous" cannot mean that obedience is dangerous and moderate sin is wise, because the conclusion commands us to keep God's commandments. We should interpret the warning with humility and in light of the book's opposition to presumption and control. Likewise, the epilogue does not contradict the preacher. The narrator calls him wise and his words truthful. The conclusion gathers the book's own calls to fear God, remember the Creator, live accountably, and trust divine judgment. Ecclesiastes is meant to unsettle false confidence, not empty our faith. It takes away the illusion that we can control life and returns us to the God who can be trusted when life remains beyond our control. Finally, what do we carry with us? Ecclesiastes teaches us to receive God's gifts without asking them to become our gods. We can enjoy a meal because it is good, not because it can satisfy every hunger of the soul. We can love our family without asking them to carry the full weight of our identity. We can work diligently without treating achievement as the measure of our worth. We can save wisely without pretending wealth can secure our future. We can pursue wisdom without assuming we will understand every season. The book also teaches us to surrender outcomes. Faithfulness is ours to choose. Results remain with God. We can sow in the morning and work in the evening, but we cannot command which effort will prosper. We can build carefully, serve generously, teach truthfully, and love deeply while entrusting the legacy of that labor to the King. Ecclesiastes gives us permission to acknowledge mystery. We do not have to manufacture an explanation for every hardship or pretend every injustice has already been resolved. We can tell the truth about life under the sun while trusting the God who sees the whole. It also calls us to accountable joy. Life is brief, so we should not ignore the ordinary gifts before us while chasing a permanent satisfaction they were never meant to provide. We can thank God for today's portion. Notice beauty, receive companionship, rest from our toil, and rejoice in the days He gives us. But we must remember our Creator. The days of strength do not last forever. The things we hold will eventually leave our hands, or our hands will leave them. We should not wait until everything temporary begins to fade before asking what is eternal. Fear God, keep His commandments, trust His judgment, walk beneath the reign of King Jesus. Because He has conquered death, we can release our grasp, receive our portion, and abound in the work of the Lord, knowing that in Him our labor is not in vain. The full written companion to this video is available on the Tuesdays with Tony Facebook page. There you can revisit these movements, scripture references, and reflection questions at your own pace. As we sit with Ecclesiastes today, perhaps the question is not whether we have good things in our lives, but what we are asking those things to give us. What temporary gift are we asking to provide something only the eternal God can give? We may be asking our work to give us worth, our possessions to give us security, our wisdom to give us control, our relationships to give us completeness, or our legacy to give us permanence. Ecclesiastes invites us to loosen our grasp. These gifts do not become less good when we stop asking them to save us. We become free to receive them for what they are, portions from the hand of God. Life under the sun is brief. We cannot hold it still, master every outcome, or carry our achievements beyond the grave. But we can remember our Creator. We can fear Him, keep His commandments, enjoy His gifts, serve faithfully, and trust the risen King with everything we cannot keep. If you are willing, share your reflections or questions in the comments so we can learn and walk this journey together.